Hello, everyone. I am Alison Kentish. I am a journalist from Dominica, but I live and work out of St. Lucia in the Caribbean. I know that you are following this panel discussion from different time zones, and so I say good morning, good afternoon, and good night, according to where you are joining us from. We are really happy to have you joining us for this discussion, which is part of this landmark virtual climate summit. And our esteemed panel will be discussing regional SIDS cooperation and specifically integrated and inclusive climate technology markets. Our discussion is organized by the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. UNIDO has contributed significantly to SIDS cooperation. In fact, in 2015, a draft resolution was adopted to establish the partnership framework in light of the priorities of small island developing states. The Austrian Development Agency funded the establishment and the first operational phase for renewable energy and energy efficiency centers in the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean, and the Pacific, and has also provided support to the African islands at the ECOWAS Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. So with these centers, they form a global network of regional centers for sustainable energy, and the centers are part of efforts to address energy security, energy access for productive uses, and climate change mitigation and adaptation in small states. And UNIDO and SIDS also promote the Small Islands Indicative Project pipeline, and it has an estimated $1.2 billion in potential energy projects at various stages of development. UNIDO also hosts the Private Financing Advisory Network, and this facilitates and advises businesses in the development of investment-ready clean energy proposals and searches for counterparts among financiers. It has supported over 100 clean energy projects and leverages over $1.3 billion in investments. Now, small island states represent a truly compelling business case for sustainable energy investment, guided by Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development and the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Many of us are taking part in this discussion, and you are probably logged on from a small island developing state, and you would probably know that policymakers are determined to wean our countries off the dependence on diesel and heavy fuel, and have been exploring renewable energy sources. So this forum, this panel discussion is crucial as we look ahead to the future where small island states can take advantage of renewable energy and energy efficiency markets. Of course, this is the first virtual climate summit, and we want you to participate fully in this initiative and in this discussion. So the hashtag for this panel discussion is CVF Summit Panel. Again, hashtag CVF Summit Panel. And please feel free, submit your questions and your feedback to us. Our panelists are going to explore how SIDS, regional organizations, and international partners are fostering and can better foster inclusive clean energy markets. So let me introduce you to the members of the panel. We will begin with William Hines of the Energy Ministry in Barbados. Mr. Hines has a BSc and MSc in Alternative Energy and is the Chief Energy Conservation Officer in the Ministry of Energy and Water Resources. He is the head of the Energy Conservation and Renewable Energy Unit, which is responsible for the government's renewable energy and energy efficiency programs. We have Christine Duncan, who is the projects coordinator for SIDS, the Small Islands Developing States Sustainable Energy and Climate Resilience Organization, which was established in 2015. She's also the founder of the SIDS Island Women Open Network, which is the gender arm of SIDS. She's also a part-time lecturer and course coordinator in energy, sustainable development, and environmental issues, project cycle management and advocacy and negotiation skills at the University of the West Indies Open Campus, Mona, Jamaica. We have Maria Monterrey, SICRI coordinator, BSc in Business Administration and MSc in Economics. She used to work with the Energy and Environment Partnership with Central America. Currently, she's working on the preparatory phase of the Center of Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, which will be part of the global network of regional centers for sustainable energy. And with us also is Hannes Bauer from Vienna, and Hannes is an expert in renewable energy. So we have a very good panel we brought together a very good panel here, and welcome everybody. And we will start with each person will be able to give some opening remarks. We'll start with Mr. Hines from Barbados.
Well, certainly welcome to every person, and I hope everyone has been enjoying the session so far. Certainly, there is a distinct opportunity for small island developing states, not only in terms of cooperation among ourselves, but to offer leadership towards the global trend and towards increased sustainable energy. And certainly, as is mentioned, we have some specific characteristics of our energy sector that lend itself to greater and accelerated use of sustainable energy. And my expectations are that small island developing states will rise and become the global leaders in this area.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. And we will go next to Ms. Salvaria.
Hello, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here in this panel. For us here in Central America, well, I have to say SICA countries because Central America, including Belize and Dominican Republic, it's the Central American System for Integration. So we work together, the 8 countries in the region, to promote the renewable energies and energy efficiency. And UNIDO is giving us a great opportunity with this global network of centers that they are creating.
Welcome back, everybody. And just before we broke there, we were introducing you to our panelists on this discussion. Of course, our discussion is focused on regional SIDS cooperation and specifically integrated and inclusive climate technology markets. Our discussion is organized by the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. And just before we broke, we heard from Mr. Hines out of Barbados. Mr. Hines is the Chief Energy Conservation Officer in the Ministry of Energy and Water Resources there. And we also heard from Maria Monterrey, SICRI Coordinator. And we'll now introduce you to Christine Duncan, the Projects Coordinator for SIDS, the Small Island Developing States Sustainable Energy and Climate Resilience Organization.
Greetings, colleagues and friends across the globe. Thank you for joining us here at whatever time of the day it is. My name is Christine Nevitz Duncan, and I'm part Jamaican and part Portuguese with my roots in the island of Cabo Verde. I consider myself an island woman. I am the Director for Projects at the SIDS DOC. It's a sustainable energy and climate resilience organization that serves 32 SIDS across the Pacific, the Caribbean, the Atlantic, and the Indian Ocean. I'm looking forward to this discussion and to sharing with you some of our work program at the SIDS DOC, and in particular, some of the SIDS appropriate technologies that will help to drive our blue-green economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. And our final panelist is Hannes Bauer. And as we told you earlier, Hannes is an expert in renewable energy. Welcome, Hannes.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to speak to you in this community. I was happy to participate when the first center was started. It was in 2008 when Austria donated 3 million, and the West African community ECOWAS started the Center ECRE in 2010. I have been working for the center in West Africa during 8 years, so I'm very happy to join this meeting now. In West Africa, I was mainly responsible for the hydropower program, for the solar thermal program. Only working for phasing out fossil energy by 2040. Later on, I would like to talk more about it. So, thank you very much.
Have made considerable progress in enabling the market environment for renewable energy and energy efficiency investments. However, many of those investments are struggling to reach economies of scale. So what we want to know is your thoughts on the key barriers to that, and how do you see those barriers being addressed in your own country or region? And maybe lastly, what kind of support do you believe you need from the international community, international partners? Again, we'll start with Mr. Hines.
Yes, the major barrier that we have is transitioning from an technological environment that is based on traditional practices, in specifically in our electricity sector, where in small island developing states, we typically have a single utility, where that utility's premise of existence is based on the assumption that the best approach is a single utility, centralized generation. What we are actually looking at doing is wanting to transition towards perhaps a single grid, but having more than one independent generator. That philosophical change will require regulatory change, legislative change, and a general mindset in terms of appreciating that independent power producers must rights. We probably need to look at, in many cases, unbundling utility, which will be a challenge for the utility itself. And for the government, we also need to look at issues relating to how do national and international investment fill the gap where the utilities generation begin to evolve from its own singular generation to a generation by homeowners, businesses, and investors who are independent power producers. Those are some of the barriers.
Okay, and in terms of support from partners, how do you think the international community can help?
We want to know what your experiences are in the international community. We want to know the successes. And most importantly, we want to know what your failures are, what your challenges have been, because we want to learn from your experiences. Most science people say, well, it's not rocket science, we can do it, and it's been done in this country. But we may have a successful country that shows a rosy picture of achievement, but we do not know about the hiccups, the molehills, and in some cases the mountains that they have had to go over. What we want to do is in the same way that you learn from your errors, we want to learn from your errors as well, of course, out of your successes. In terms of grant financing, I would say that the investment has to be driven by a desire for opportunity. So even although we seek demonstration projects through grant financing, what we want to do is a realization of investor-driven projects, investor-driven transition in terms of sustainable energy where it makes technical, economic, and of course, environmental sense.
Okay, thank you. And of course, living in both St. Lucia, Dominica, I can identify with everything, all the points that you've just raised. But Maria, is it different for you where you are? What are some of the barriers that you see, and how do you think the international community can help?
Yes, it's the same situation. You know, our countries are very similar here in SICA countries. Of course, we have the big barriers, the financial and economical barriers, the political barriers, which are trying to be solved by the governments. But still, there is a lot to do, and we need to attack mainly the technical barriers. As William said, it's very important that we have good suppliers, and since the markets are very small in each country, regionally it could represent a different situation to have better suppliers, to have better capacity building. We need more capacity building, and that's where we need the cooperation of the international institutions, which are already working on that and have already been in this process to promote a sustainable energy. So we are looking forward to the cooperation, and well, in this case, UNIDO is helping us. The Austrian cooperation and Spain and the Nordic countries will support the Central America and SICA process.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Duncan?
Thank you. From the SIDS perspective, we have a cohort of 32 islands. And over the last 6 to 8 years, we've done some significant research in looking at the dimensions from policy, regulatory awareness, and all of the barriers that we in SIDS face with regards to uptake of RE and EE. For example, policy. Most SIDS have policies in draft form, because one thing we know is that a donor will not give you any grant funding without a policy. So one of the first things that we would look to our partners is to see how we can escalate completing and finalizing these policies. That's the first thing that we need to do, because far too many of us And, you know, William, where he sits, will know that a number of the OECS countries, the Eastern Caribbean islands, most of them have their policies in draft form. So too for a number of the SIDS. On the issue of regulations, we also know that it is very, very expensive to set up a regulatory authority. So in that case, we also would need some lessons learned from our partners in making not shortcuts, but excluding some of those items that are not SID specific in setting up our regulatory authorities. Because of our small size, it means that we have to look at small scope. So that's when it comes to regulations. When we are looking at technical capacity, we already know from a study that we did, a gap analysis, that we have a huge footprint to make up between now and when most of us have our ambitions to the year 2033 and beyond. So the challenge for us is, how can we quickly, and as William said earlier, we are now in the stage of where oil men and oil women, how do we transition them to RE and EE men and women? And that's the challenge. It's expensive and it's time bound. And so we have a plan, and we estimate that for the whole transition, it's going to cost in excess of 15 to 20 million just for closing that gap in SIDS. So we would look to our partners to helping us with some of the programs that we have developed. Example, capacity building, RE and EE certificate programs that will be launched at the University of the West Indies Open Campus, hopefully sometime next year. And also, we have some other activities that we need support from. We need our people to attend meetings and conferences so that they can interface with each other. On the matter of public education and awareness, we know that we are short in that area. And you, as a journalist, Madam Moderator, you know the challenge it is to fight for airspace, to fight for print space, and to fight just to be on the world stage when you have such a small voice. So we depend on the large voices of our leaders and our stakeholders to get our message out there. So we at SIDSDOC have a public education and awareness program that we launched in Samoa, the third conference on SIDS, and we are now actively seeking support for elements of that. And it feeds into all of the public education and awareness activities that our 32 countries have told us that they want to participate in. And finally, I want to, not finally, the other issue I want to address is financing, which to me, while we have great projects, SIDS is what I term virgin territory for investment in RE and EE. So there's opportunities for investment, but one of the things that we have to understand, and we have to let our partners know, is that we are small in size, and therefore we need technologies that are built to scale and that are SID specific. So that's one of the first things that we need to get over with regards to financing. If we can get over some of those issues, then I believe firmly that we will be able to see some movement in that area. And then I'd like to insert gender, because that's a huge barrier that we have to recognize that women face. 50% of the households right across the SIDS are headed by women. And in another 25 years, women are going to make up the majority of the world's population. Women also account for more than half of the human capital. So in any transition program that we're looking at, women must be side by side with men in every single activity. Otherwise, we're destined to fail. And in that regard, the SIDSDOC Island Women Open Network has developed a proposal for an energy financing facility that is specifically targeted to women who want to participate, whether it is in capacity building or they want to set up their own businesses selling RE and EE supplies, whether they want to set up their own energy service companies. So these are some of the activities that we are looking at and have developed. and that we're looking towards our partners for their support. And in all of this, we have to stand with our great partner, our SIDS strategic partner, our institutional partner, which is UNIDO. So we thank them for the support that they've given to SIDS. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those, and especially you touched on so many points there, from financing to public education, and of course the always important gender balance going ahead. So thank you so much for that. And Hannes, what has your experience taught you in terms of just some of the issues that were raised there? I know you have the Vienna experience, you have the West African experience, so just talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I think we heard a lot of very interesting things of the last three speeches. We all want to make a change concerning the climate. It is the countries in the island states are at high risk. They're very vulnerable. They have to adapt a lot, and they don't have the possibility to get everything that is quite remote. So the regional centers, as ICRI in West Africa, I have been situated in Cape Verde, and they really need bilateral funds. They got funds and the support of UNIDO, funds from Austria, funds from Spain in the case of West Africa. But this is necessary that they can move and decide what the countries need to do regarding capacity building. The cooperation between the centers of excellence and universities should be strengthened strongly. In our case, we had different programs with practical trainings. But what we perceived is that it is difficult to get budget and funds for practical long-term trainings for the engineers in the countries. For example, we need hydrologic data, and the hydrologic quality of the hydrologic, the scientists in hydrology were not doing this job for hydropower in this case, and so you cannot move on. The capacity building, the practical aspects of capacity building is very important to go ahead. Regarding policy, we tried to create, together with countries, action plans for renewable energy, for energy efficiency, but the quality was sometimes quite good and sometimes not so good. So the cost check and the improvement of the quality of the action plans within in this case the 15 countries in West Africa should be improved a lot. The awareness is very important, because if you talk about solar energy, many people think about PV, and it's of course very important as well to develop the other renewable technologies as solar thermal energy. I know that Barbados is very good in solar thermal, as Austria and as other countries, but in many countries in West Africa we had to start from the scratch, and it is not useful to have electricity and to use electricity for heating up water, to take a shower or for something else. It is really useful if we use electricity for the electricity, and if we use the sun and the solar thermal heat for this case. So awareness is very important in case of solar thermal energy, and then you have less load on the power sector as well. I think the community needs to strengthen, the international community needs to strengthen the support of funding practical capacity building. This is one of the most important things, the capacity building, the practical long-term capacity building. So we have engineers which can do that job, which can go ahead and make a change in the country. And I also have to say that the politicians, the high-level people have to have a big support for the for the mitigation adaptation regarding climate change, because they make the international, they make it possible the international funding. So I hope that the other centers, not only in West Africa, but all these 5 centers make a strong collaboration to get the technologies and the funding to make capacity building, to make data collection as it is needed to make a change in renewable energy and in energy transition. Thanks.
Thank you, Hannes. And so many issues came up just from this one question. And of course, I'm wearing my journalist hat, and I'm thinking, wow, there's so many stories right there that the world needs to know. So I'm happy that we have this forum, and some of that information can reach out to those joining us online and those who will see the news reports coming out of this forum. And something that William touched on a while ago, in his presentation a while ago, he said that the monopolies that the power producers in our small islands have, it's an issue because it means it makes unbundling in SIDS energy markets a bit more challenging. I know it for a fact here in St. Lucia. I know there will be a lot of negotiations taking place in Dominica. And one of the questions that was sent into us even before this panel was constituted was how can small island developing states utility companies be encouraged to rethink their business models so that they can embrace strides in renewable energy, and also that they can include more shares of clean energy. So, William, I'll throw it over to you because you already brought that up.
Well, certainly, these are new and interesting days for the utilities in small island states. There are new opportunities and there are challenges. I believe that utilities have to transition their utility model from an expectation that they will be the monopoly in terms of energy supply to a transition where they offer other services as governments move towards creating other opportunities for persons who can compete with them. We no longer need to look at a situation where there is a monopoly utility and say that that is the only way that we can have electricity production in small island states. We no longer need to believe that if the utilities' share of electricity production is reduced, then the other consumers that are working and buying from utility will suffer. We have to understand that the 100-year-long tenure of utilities where the concept of centralized generation is over. And therefore, we are embracing the future. We are embracing the future not exclusively for the shareholders of the utilities, but we are embracing the future for the citizens of the small island states and the citizens of the world. We need to give as great an opportunity for a return on investment to those persons who want to produce and sell their own renewable energy electricity, as we have given the utilities in terms of their guarantees on their profits over the years. The utilities, of course, have many opportunities in terms of shifting to offering ancillary services such as demand-side management, such as services where they can actually assist consumers in reducing the electricity, shifting the electricity base. The utility, as you mentioned, can also be a key role player in our transition towards sustainable energy by having their part of the space in transitioning their new generating capacity as much as is possible and especially the generating capacity that is about to retire towards renewable energy. Unfortunately, it will mean some receding of the utilities' profits and opportunities. That is a reality. When monopolies are challenged by persons who seek opportunities, then some of the opportunities that the monopoly had before will have to go. Governments have to be brave enough to say to their utilities, thank you for helping to create the economic space and the development that we've had by giving us this wonderful invention of electricity over 100 years. But now we have to put our wings on and fly. And in order to fly, we have to give opportunities to others in the same way that we've given opportunities to the utility and monopolies for the 100 years. The governments have to be bold enough to say, well, time for others to come on board. So I will end by saying that governments have to be brave enough to start the transition. Utilities have to be bold enough to understand that there's new opportunity and new adventure beyond being the exclusive monopoly in electricity.
Thank you very much for that. Maria, any thoughts on that specific question?
Yes, of course. From my point of view, it's very, very important to have more players in the ground of the electricity market. Monopoly, it's a situation in particular countries, but you know that the renewable energy producers are always, most of the time, small players, so it's important to give them the opportunity. And from my point of view, it's here in the SICA countries, we have more opportunities to introduce the small renewable energy players, but we still are lacking of the policies and regulation to do that. So we are looking forward with the actions that we are planning to start with the UNIDO from January 2019, and more people will be aware, and more producers could start selling their renewable energy to their grid. So, I think it's very good to give opportunity to everybody to participate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just before we hear the SIDS doc experience, I just want to remind anybody who's watching online and who probably has a question or just wants to give some feedback that they can use the hashtag CVF Summit Panel. Again, hashtag CVF Summit Panel. And feel free to ask our panelists whatever is on your mind, and let us know what you think about the discussion so far. So we just move on now to the SIDS doc experience with how has it been in terms of the private power companies and going into the small island developing states with this thrust towards renewables.
So it's been very interesting for us from a research standpoint, because when we look at the total complement of SIDS within the group of the Alliance of Small Island States, there are about 38 countries. And within that group, we only have 5 countries that have private utilities. All the other utilities are state-owned. And some of them that are privately owned, in economic terms, we call that a monopsony. Monop, S-O-N-Y, meaning that it's partially owned by a private entity and the public and the government. So in essence, we in SIDS, we own our utilities. William had mentioned that, you know, the predecessors had done a great job in putting in the infrastructure. But what we have left is old power plants, inconsistent transmission lines, lots of losses in the transmission, In Jamaica, we lose upwards of 16% in losses when we transmit energy. And that's a huge cost. And who bears that cost? The public. So we hold a different perspective on how we view utilities based on our research. We see utilities as a mode, as part of sustainable development. We know that others have the view of it being as a strictly profit-seeking entity. But for small islands, because of our special case where it would cost hands maybe $10 for, some oil to reach to Austria. But for us in SIDS, it's 300% more in cost. So we have to look at what's best for us with regards to how we manage our utilities. And we've found that partnership is the best way to go, where we invite entities from private investors who are interested in purchasing and being a partner and investing in our utilities, recognizing that SIDS already, through its treaty, the SIDS doc, agreed to pursue a blue-green economy. And that means that we will transition to renewable energy and energy efficiency and a low-carbon economy by 2030. So our partners, when they sign on with us, they know that this is what our goals are. And they're quite willing to sign on because they see this huge opportunity, especially for energy efficiency. So in the short term, we will say to our utilities, now is the time for you to look at distributed generation and energy efficiency and conservation as your new energy model. Otherwise, you will not survive. Because already we know, our friends and sisters and brothers in the Pacific, 30% of them don't have access to energy at all. Whereas in the Caribbean, access is not our issue. Almost 89% of the Caribbean has access to electricity, but few of us can afford it. So these are some of the issues that we're addressing and looking at how we can transitioning and making sure that the model, the energy mix that goes into the new model for the utility speaks to all of these goals and ambitions. Because don't forget, we also committed ourselves to the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.
Hannes?
Yes. It's true that many fossil energy enterprises, they want to stick to their business model and to sell fossil energy. And finally, they don't have climate protection in mind, as we should all have. And especially the utilities and the state-owned utilities also want to stick to their business model. And the monopolies perform not at all energy efficient, is my experience. And stick a lot to use fossil energy. So the political pressure to use fossil energy also in Austria, also in West Africa is very high. And the change could be if we have much different and much more private utilities. Let me share you one example. In Austria, of course, we have many different utilities, about 30, and we have labeling of green energy, of ecological energy from renewable energy, and we can decide what we want to buy. Okay, this is now possible in the small country of Austria, but this is perhaps also something where the future should be in small island states in future. But then we have really to think about, we want to survive. We had high risk. The small island states are very vulnerable, but the whole world is at high risk. If we see in 100 years what is going on, if we have 4-degree plus. So how can we stick to Paris? So we need a strong movement from the population to say we need the change and the phasing out of fossil energy by 2040. This means then we are in line with the Paris Agreement. So this phasing out by 2040 is something where we still have a basis to survive, where we still can look into the eyes of our children in future. And this is what we try to do in Austria. We try to create a movement with many pioneers, many different NGOs, enterprises, green labeled utilities to go this step and to make pressure on the politician. And we try to do a referendum for phasing out of fossil energy. And the legislative text of this referendum should be formulated by citizen alliances. We have very good experience of citizen alliances in Ireland, in Canada, and this is also what we want to do and what we are starting here. And perhaps it is also possible for small island countries to make pressure and a big movement from civil society. I would be interested to learn more about this for the countries where you live in. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And a very important component when we speak about renewable energy. I know here in the Caribbean, our citizens are hearing more and more about sources of renewable energy. As media people, as a media person myself, we speak about solar energy, we speak about hydro. We're now in St. Lucia, the push towards geothermal. There's a new thrust towards exploring geothermal. So all these are really important components of that thrust towards renewables. We want to speak a little bit though about adding value, adding local value to this initiative and to bring that into our conversation. And we know that policies and technology transfer programs tend to focus on creating demand for new sustainable energy products and services. But we often hear that local value in terms of jobs, turnover, and such investments remain limited. I wanted to learn a little more about your experiences in your countries. And one question came in, that is, how can the international community better support small island developing states, entrepreneurs, and startups so that they can commercialize, if they come up with an innovative idea, innovative island solutions to our situation. So how can they take advantage of global value chains of sustainable energy manufacturing and servicing? And we'll start with William.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very interesting in terms of adding local value. Barbados is indeed one of the top countries in terms of solar water heaters per capita in the entire world. And our solar water heater industry is 100% value added in Barbados, purely because we championed local businesses, local innovators. There are two developmental pathways that any developing country can take. There is the strong and fast, where you get your technical assistance sourced internationally, you get your technology sourced internationally, you make that leap forward. But the technology that you imported is not technology that may be appropriate. It is not going to be sustainable because you will continue to have to be importing parts and experts, etc. The other sustainable development pathway that we really need to consider is the pathway that used by mostly successful countries in the world, where we slow down a little bit the speed at which we go in order to ensure that we build on, establish local development, local achievement, local product. Most of the developed and successful countries have two pathways. The pathway where they speak of the shift towards minimizing the emissions in terms of the climate change language and the path that they have in terms of ensuring that they build the industry. So we've done that in the solar water heater industry. The countries in Denmark and Netherlands have done added value in terms of the wind. Brazil has done added value in terms of how it's transitioned in terms of biofuels. So what I am suggesting, in the same way Barbados has done it, we need to have programs. We need to speak to our international development assistance partners and say, we don't just want your assistance to add X amount of megawatts of renewable energy into our system, but we want your assistance to add X amount of local value, local jobs. And if we have to choose between a 10 megawatt or 20 megawatt in terms of our transition, that is going to be purely based on international investment, international technology, or 5 megawatts, significantly less, but it's built on local capacity, local value, local jobs, local expertise, then we have to be bold enough to say we will take the slower path. And we will take the path that leads towards greater sustainability in terms of jobs, in terms of know-how, in terms of manufacturing. We have to boldly engage the international development partners and say, we want a two-pronged approach, not just in terms of transitioning towards greater sustainable development, lower greenhouse gases emissions, but we want an approach that guarantees that those fledgling entrepreneurs are not tapped on, forgotten, put aside as we press towards speed in terms of achieving our goals towards not just sustainable energy, but all aspects of our development. So the message that I am giving is that we need to insist that written within our documents, in our projects, written within our philosophies, that we are building an industry. We are creating an industry. We're not just transitioning to sustainable energy, but we're creating an industry because we need to sustain jobs. If we can't sustain jobs, then who's going to buy the solar energy? Who's going to use the solar energy? We need to add that value, and we have to consider beyond the added local value that then smaller and developing states and other developing countries can also export the technology, as Barbados has done.
Thank you. Maria, William mentioned just going beyond speed and looking at jobs, young innovators, supporting local. Your thoughts?
Yes, it's very important. Here in Central America and SICA countries, we have been looking forward to do that, but it's very difficult. As you know, you need the know-how, the investment, capital to start. So I know the efforts being done in Guatemala and in Dominican Republic to produce solar technology, but as I said, it has been difficult, and we need, I think, most important in this issue should be the South cooperation. It's very important to know what the other countries in the South area are doing, so we can apply that here in the capacity building. It's very important, and of course the North-South cooperation, which we are looking forward with this new global network of centers of sustainable energy from UNIDO, and for me. We will try to work on that, but we will need some policies as well, some policies to promote that. The government needs to promote in each country that, and from my point of view, it will be better to look at the problem regionally and not just nationally, because it's better to deal with one region, with one partner, that with, in this case, 8 countries by themselves. So I think it's we can do it, and we look forward to do that. I think the time is running. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you for that. And of course, we will hear from the SIDS experience, because it's important as a grouping to get that feedback.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly do some bullets. Firstly, if we're looking at how can we empower our young people, this is a very important issue, because right across the SIDS, young people make up the majority of our population. So, you know, today I'm talking to you young people and letting you know that we, the elders, we're depending on you. And if we are to depend on you, we have to empower you with the skills. Young people come to the small and medium-sized enterprise office seeking help. They come with great ideas, but no plans. So the first thing that I would say is get your business plan together, because a good business plan always attracts good money. So that's the first thing. Secondly, what we found out was that if we are going to help our young people, we will have to set up something like an innovation fund that would provide them with seed money so that they can go there and help contribute to getting their startup up and running. What are some of the areas that these young people can be innovators in? Well, firstly, look at all of the different areas of RE and EE. Let's look at ocean energy. The ocean is our largest resource, renewable energy resource, right? And SIDS are the custodians. We are ocean people, we are water people. And so we have a technology that's SIDS specific called the Ocean Energy Thermal Conversion Technology. It's one of the few technologies that can provide baseload power. That means we have continuous power, unlike a windmill that only blows when the wind blows. But the sea, the oceans, it's always there. We look at biomass, that is all the cuttings and the greenery and all of those things. And sugarcane. A lot of us in SIDS grow sugarcane from Mauritius to Fiji, Barbados, Jamaica, you name it. We need to transform from sugar as a sweetener to sugar as energy. You can make charcoal bricks from sugarcane. You can make nail polish remover. You can make all kinds of value-added products. And the same thing with solar. And with all of these activities that are going on, the most important thing that we need is the right policy. Because in the case of Barbados, the only reason why the solar water heater project is a success to this day is because of policy. Because remember, you know, what the government did, the government gave up taxes. They stopped taxing people who are bringing in solar water heaters. And so it's really a political question. How much revenue is government willing to give up to move towards sustainable development and looking in the long term? Because here we are in the long term, 30 years later. Other than Israel, Barbados is king of solar water heaters. So that is a model that we're looking at for young people. Get your business plan together. Get to your SME centers, get a mentor, contact people who you know, find some angel investors, and join a network. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And Hannes, your views?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think it's really true that the young people should be skilled, trained, motivated, best possible by policy, by education, universities, and international cooperation. So the practical teaching of the skills, of the technical skills, the financial skills, the skills how to write a business plan, this is really very important. But then there's still a gap. I think it's also very important to interact with the know-how which you find in countries where these or some of those technologies have been developed yet. You don't need to reinvent everything, of course. And then it's possible to make the business plans real. What is really needed is to interact with international experts and universities as well. And may I also, as we talked about solar thermal collectors, I know that Barbados is a front runner. In Austria, which is also a front runner in solar thermal, it started 35 years ago, but not by policy. No, it started by somebody who wanted to make a change when fossil prices went up, and it is now a research and technology enterprise. It's the AEE Intec, which is also disseminating the results, how to make different temperature ranges by solar thermal water in African countries and also in Central American countries. Much later, the policy did the right regulations and the right conditions to make solar thermal energy be a winner and to make solar thermal energy in Austria as good as in Barbados or in Israel or in other countries, in Cyprus. So it is first the pioneers who come up. So please, the policy, it's important to support the pioneers and to make them business real and to make the finances for them available. Because if you support the pioneers, the young pioneers, you will have an excellent basis to make a change in the country towards renewable energy. Thank you.
Janice, and thank you everybody, because it's been an eye-opener even for me. I've been writing about energy and climate change, renewables for a while now, but so many new points came up, so many interesting angles, the youth, gender, financing, and I'm sure our viewers, those watching, would feel the same way. So I'm very grateful for all the points that have arisen, and thank you for so many news stories also coming out of this, because there's so much here that I think our various regions, I know the Caribbean, needs to know. And so before we wrap up, I would just like to give each panelist a chance to leave some closing remarks to those listening and those viewing. So again, we'll start with William.
Thank you for having the opportunity on this panel. Thank you for having the opportunity to participate in the entire virtual summit. I'll begin by saying virtual summit is an excellent idea and we should do more. We have actually saved several tons of greenhouse gas emissions avoided by not having to fly to a central location. That is excellent, and I encourage the organizers to do more. My second comment is that we need to transition our developmental pathway. We have to be champions of our innovative directions by rewriting our policy and programs to look at the priorities in developing countries. Our priorities is not just transitioning towards sustainable energy, because small island developing states have very small footprints. We are making a contribution, but our equally an important challenge is economic development in the global environment, where the products and services that we've offered in the past are not insignificant. This may call from innovative thinking in terms of how we treat the sustainable energy projects. I may actually want to suggest, instead of having a project in terms of transition to sustainable energy where we hope that there may be some local content and jobs, that we should start and say that no, we have a project that is focused on local content and jobs that will also do sustainable energy. But our verifiable indicators, our achievements have to be weighed in terms of the quantum of local development and job creation just as equally or more than we have qualified the achievements of the target in terms of kilowatt hours of renewable energy, kilowatt hours of energy saved, or actually tons of greenhouse gases mitigated. So I end by saying we need to transition the way we do business within our countries and the way we do business with our international partners to ensure that it is a developmental pathway where we own it, we begin from it, and we become champions of the technology and jobs because the projects are redesigned that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Yes, well, this has been a great opportunity. I agree that these virtual summits are incredible because you can learn from people from all over the world, and you don't have to move from your country. So I agree, it's a great opportunity. And I only want to make a highlight. I learned from my work here in the region of the renewables. If you want a renewable energy project to succeed, you have to have this win-win situation when the project developers start a new project. Then they have to see that something is coming for them. They have to, well, of course, they are contributing with the environment, they are contributing with the climate change, but they have to see some economic reward to be enthusiastic and to be for the project to be sustainable. That's my experience, and I wanted to share that when you see a new project, then you have to look for the sustainability and for the win-win situation that the project developer will have. If it's not that way, it will be difficult that it will stay into time. Also, want to highlight that we are working here and we are talking about this renewable energy, sustainable energy, because we want to give a better world to our future generations. The next generation is coming now, and they have to have more opportunities and to learn everything that we have been learning until now. So I appreciate very much the opportunity. You have been a great moderator. Thank you very much. And to all the panelists, it was a pleasure to be with you. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. And we go over to Christine.
Madam Moderator, thank you very much for guiding us through this very, very important forum. I am very honored to have been allowed to participate and share with what my organization is doing. I just want to make it very, very clear. Our citizens in SIDS are very, very scared of climate change, particularly, as you know, in your own island of Dominica that has not recovered, completely destroyed. So we need to remember that we're dealing with a time-bound event that's going to be more ferocious. It's going to be unimaginable. So we really don't have much time to slow down. Right now, we have to learn to multitask. And I can tell you, when our leaders from SIDS signed that SIDS-DOC treaty in 2014 in Samoa, They essentially said, we're done fighting, we're going to start working for our own. And that's why we set up SIDS. So now we had a bold move by the Prime Minister of Grenada, who is the current president of SIDS, who will be installing and establishing the first OTEC facility in Grenada. And this will be the first pilot, because once Grenada achieves full operation of that facility, bye-bye fossil fuel. So essentially what we're saying to our fellow SIDS, we have a solution to get us off the tit of fossil fuel. Because if we don't, we are going to be in serious trouble, despite the fact that we emit the least amount of emissions in the entire world. We're going to be the first to be impacted. So I say to the international community, thank you for partnering with us. We view public-private partnerships as a way to go for sustainable development. And we ask you to stick with us on this journey. And we want to thank UNIDO, our partner. And also, we know that this entire forum was sponsored by donors. And we say to our donors, thank you very much. And the next time, we hope that we can have more participants join us so that we can exchange and share more information. Have a great day wherever you are, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christine. And finally, Hannes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Moderator, for this very nice meeting with all of you. I would like to get all the contacts and emails afterwards. What I would like to call everybody, we need to phase out of fossil energy better by 2040 than by 2050, 2060, 2070. So we cannot wait, because in the case of Austria, the CO2 emissions are not going back in the last years. We have a lot of renewable energy technologies, but we need a movement to make a change. We need a strong movement with all the pioneers we have got. And I would like to reach out to you internationally. How can you phase out fossil energy by, for example, 2040? Is this a political will that you have in your country? How strong are the influences by the fossil energy lobbies? We know we have strong fossil energy lobbies in all over the world, in Europe and in small island states everywhere. So how can we make the change? And I would like to do it together with you and to learn from your experiences. Our initiative is called We Decide Climate. So this is the referendum which should go to the phasing out of fossil energy. So I'm happy to have been participated with you. Thank you so much, and thank you to UNIDO as well so much for this initiative. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the panel. It's certainly been a pleasure being your moderator at this UNIDO convened panel discussion. Thanks for sharing your expertise and your insight into truly important areas of SIDS cooperation. This has been a treasure trove of information, newsworthy takeaways, and I really, really appreciate that. Thank you to the CVF for organizing this landmark, amazing event that walks the walk on climate change, climate resilience, and has captured global attention. And thank you to our online audience for just being here with us. I'm Alison Kentish, and thanks to everyone, wherever you are, whatever time zone you're logging in from, various parts of this earth. Thanks for taking time out and for being part of this panel discussion and this mission to protect our planet.
Thank you.
Thank you.